Section 10 of Alcatraz of the Starways by Henry Hasse and Albert DePina. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Cinda J. M. Section 10. Soon now. Karsten's murmur echoed eerily against the shrill hum of the atomo motors in the upper scales. The phantasmal glow of the selector screen suffused the chamber. Selenic cells poured additional power into the trans-telecator beam as Cynthia's fingers trembled over the shining dials. Karsten, standing beside her, was white-faced and tense. Slowly, a shifting blur materialized on the huge televise of the Atheromagnum. It focused, and the thin-lipped, ascetic features of the Earth Coordinator materialized in the immense council room of Earth. The council, in full session, surrounded him. All were intent on their receiving screens, on which Karsten and Cynthia were reflected. Cynthia stepped nervously aside, and Karsten came forward. He bowed low, then his voice, hoarse with uncontrollable elation, rose in greeting. "Your beneficence and elders of the council, I am speaking from Vulcan, the long-sought base of Captain George Marnick, where I have been a prisoner for many months, but no longer. This," he gestured hesitantly, "is Cynthia, George Marnick's daughter, for whom I beseech the coordinators and the council's clemency for the service she is about to do." Then in slow and measured words, Karsten told in detail all that had happened, beginning with his own release from the swamp by Cynthia, relating Luhor's murder of Marnick, and finally telling of the asteroid where Luhor's space cruisers were being assembled, and of the new allotropic metal being mined on Vulcan. Then he motioned for Cynthia to come forward. The coordinator had listened in silence, his grim face impassive. Every eye in the council room was unwaveringly on the screen, and the silence lay heavy between two distant worlds. Slowly, Cynthia walked toward the Erythromagnum center, a sheaf of notepaper in her hand. She smiled wanly but confidently at Karsten. Then, in a colorless voice, she read her mathematical figures, giving the position of the asteroid in space, and the formula for the shortest approach from Vulcan, as the key for computation of the trajectory from Earth. Without animation, she gave the formula for the allotropic metal process and the secret of the entrance to Vulcan. Then she fell silent. As if she didn't know what to do, she turned to Karsten and caught for a fleeting instant the smug smile of triumph on his lips. But before she could comprehend its meaning, it was gone. Will I be pardoned?" Cynthia questioned aloud, more to Karsten than to the coordinator on the screen. But the silence in the council room of Earth persisted, as busy mathematicians already were furiously computing the mathematical formulae. A thin, contemptuous smile had parted the coordinator's lips. It was the first time Karsten had ever seen him smile, and the room where he and Cynthia stood, although millions of miles distant, seemed colder suddenly as that glacial glimmer came through the screen. Karsten opened his lips to speak. "Your beneficence," he began. But suddenly, catapulted from the deepening darkness of the corridors, an azure-winged figure with curved hands outstretched fell like an avenging fury upon Karsten's back. Dainty hands suddenly transformed into claws, dug like spikes of steel. A supple body, too ethereal for strength, now seemed made of metal, as the Venusian girl attacked him with a savagery that brought every man of Earth's distant council room to his feet. Close on her heels, Mark Denning had barely time to separate the tangled figures. Karsten's face dripped blood where Aladian's fingernails had furrowed deep. Cynthia seemed rooted to the spot. So incredibly swift had it been that the battle was over in seconds. Aladian's eyes were pools of fire as she faced the council. Her streaming hair seemed to shimmer as she spat her venom into the screen. "Very well. Send your space fleet, you clumsy fools. Let your madness condemn the planets to a bath of blood. Yes, you have the formula for the allotropic metal, but what good is it to you without a source of supply? You have the location of the asteroid, but do you suppose your fleet can stand against such a mobile fortress as Luhor will make it? But it's a waste of words. I know I can never convince you. Only death and destruction can. But this I do tell you, never, never again will you enslave Venus. Never again will you imprison me in that inhuman swamp. And never will you land on Vulcan. For I have one weapon left, one which only we of Venus possess. We've used it once on Mars, once in our history only, for we are not warlike. But before Luhor and the Martian hordes overrun my planet and yours, as he certainly can, I will use this weapon, Earthian. On the screen, the coordinator's face was livid. Arrest her, he said across the immense distance to Karsten. In the name of the Supreme Council of the Triplanetary Federation, arrest her! Her life's forfeit! But Karsten stood motionless, pale as death, suddenly confronted by the grim figure of Mark, who gripped an electro-pistol in his hand. At this veritable moment, out of the void, cutting in on the beam like a disembodied cachinnation of some strange creature, wave upon wave of gigantic mirth poured on two worlds. And as every participant of this drama stood tense, watching their screens, there slowly emerged the half-breed figure of Luhor, his gargantuan laughter still roaring in uncontrollable paroxysms. So that's it, Luhor managed to choke between spasms. What entertainment you've provided me with, and what information! And to think, Aladian, that I'd planned to make you my empress. Why, my little dove has claws, he exclaimed admiringly. His immense, ugly bulk dominated the entire screen as his bellowing laughter began again. The Earth coordinator, almost beside himself, threw a master switch. The televised screens of two worlds flickered and went blank. The pulsing whine of the atomo motors was like a dirge. Cynthia passed a trembling hand across her eyes, and her gaze wavered before Aladian's accusing stare. She glanced briefly at Karsten with a slowly dawning wonderment, as if an awareness of his aims had begun to awaken within her. I'm afraid I've made a mess of things, she said in a slow, deep voice. Ever since Father's death, I seem to have lost my grip. I'm so sorry, Aladian. I thought it was for the best. Karsten assured me we'd be pardoned. Her voice trailed off as she turned her face away from them all. I should burn you, Mark Jennings said to Karsten in a cold, tight voice, and Karsten went white. You've managed to wreck our plans about as completely as possible. If the Earth blasts Luhor out of space, we face surrender or slow starvation. If Luhor wins, he can starve us out or blast his way in here with his allotropic cruisers. Now that he's forewarned by you, either way we lose. But I guarantee you, Karsten, you won't come out of this easily. Each word was like ice, and Aladian nodded slowly at Mark's words, a strange light in her brilliant eyes. We haven't lost yet, Mark. With a swift motion, she crossed to the Ethro-Magnum again and turned it on. Remember, I still have a weapon. My people are behind me. But Venus doesn't have a fleet. Earth has seen to that. Wait. Her unerring precision brought the screen to life in a burst of light. A scene took place. Alien, exotic, the Imperial Palace on Venus. A great crowd stood before it in silence, extending into the distance, as if the park-like expanse had become a place of pilgrimage. In eternal vigil, all faced the televised screen that rose from the floor level to the top of the palace. Fantastic blue-green mountains filled the background, dwarfing the small, fragile figure that materialized on the receiving screen. My people, I speak to you for the third, perhaps for the last time. There was a world of yearning in the cello-like voice as Aladian opened her arms toward them. A cyclonic roar burst forth in tribute and greeting, but quickly died down as they awaited her message. When I last spoke, I told you not to act without word from me. I hoped I would never have to give that word, but now I fear I must. The hour is almost here. What I will ask of you is the supreme sacrifice. You know what that means. I, too, am prepared to make it. There is no other way. Many will die, but only that others may avoid an even worse slavery than they now endure, and that we may attain our rightful inheritance, an equal place in the planetary federation. The voice rose like a stream of music, and tears were in Aladian's eyes. The choice is yours, my people. When the thunderous response had died down in waves of overpowering sound, Aladian stood in silence for several moments. In silence, too, the Venusian multitude remained with upturned faces. Mark had an eerie feeling that a planet was in tune with the fragile winged figure. When the connection had been broken, and once more the laboratory had reverted to semi-gloom, Mark turned to Karsten and removed his weapons from him. I can't take any chances with you now, he said coldly. After what you've done, you wanted to become a hero in the eyes of the Earth Council. Well, from now on you'll dance to my tune. But not for long, Karsten sneered openly, recovering his poise and confidence. The game's up, Denning. You're a renegade to Earth, and shall be treated as such. It'll be child's play for Earth's fleet to burn Luhor and his asteroid to a crisp. After that, he stopped and grinned contemptuously. After that, we'll be taken care of? It was Aladian who spoke, and her voice was soft like dark molten gold. Careful, Mark, she interposed quickly, placing her hand on Mark's arm as his grip tightened on the electro. I don't deserve any leniency, Cynthia said dully. I've been a fool. Aladian gazed at the Earth girl with a universe of pity in her eyes and a great understanding. No, my dear, she said softly, not a fool. Only a girl in love. But you, she lashed at Karsten, you shall reap the whirlwind, and I assure you, a Venusian whirlwind is beyond your ken. End of section 10.